Potter's journal. That little bit of ice we saw in the last video turned into a major ice storm. And the branches are just falling off the trees. I can hear them cracking in the woods and trees coming down. It is building up on the power lines too. We will see if we have electric tomorrow. And snow on top of ice. I am ready if the power does go out. I've got a whole list of work to do in the studio that we can do without electric. Wedging clay, mixing glazes. Let's see what's going on in the studio tomorrow. Okay, up till now I've been reading by lantern light. We're starting to get some light though in the window. It is time for a Potter's Journal. This came in the mail. Book review. It came in the mail about a year ago. A gift from Freddie Moretti. It is the last Potters of Black Burton. Richard Batson and the Potteries of Burton in Lonsdale. So, a remote village, English country village, small. Today is well under 1,000 in the population. So, and this covers so far, from what I've found out, roughly 300 to 500 year pottery history that made it till about 1944, and so many of these type of things are filled with facts about where and when and how, and the names of the potteries and the names of the people. This one is really nice, it seems, so far, in that it is about Richard Batson, the last potter of Black Burton, and some of his personal stories and other people who were still able to be interviewed. So I've been up since about 5 with lantern and candlelight. And even now, I'm not sure what the day is going to hold. We can do without this for now. I may put off the pottery plans. Snowed in, the power's out, iced in. There may be a lot of work ahead of me today. Let's see what's going on in the pottery today and continue with the book review. And that these potteries did not shut down in the winter is just unimaginable. Yesterday, this was a crystal palace, all heavily glazed over. Now we have got snow on top of it. Okay, you can hear the crystal palace, and that is what it sounds like too. Okay. Okay, so I am just doubling things up here. I threw them on bats, and we will now get them on one board to glaze. So Richard Batson's Waterton Pottery of Black Burton was located there because they had the clay, they had the coal, because his family did it before him. It seems that most of what they did was crocks and jugs. And pretty much unmarked, unlike mine that I put both a signature on and a stamp somewhere. Theirs were pretty much unmarked, and pretty much all the same thing, you know. And then it's such a big deal for me just to make a board of something. Us today, they did the same thing all day, and up to well over 100 pots in a day. And oddly enough, a day of vacation for them was cutting hay for their teams to get to the market. Look at this. This stuff is frozen solid. So I got my stove going, and I got the clay here heating up. I can wedge clay for tomorrow or the next day without any electric. My electric wheel's in the cold part of the studio. Unlike, their stuff was mostly undecorated. Unlike the last book I reviewed a week or two back that was highly decorated. This stuff, relatively plain. Not even that on the front of storage jars. The jugs, though, from what I read, the ones shipped over to Ireland were marked Guinness for St. James Gate. Um, but the amount of throwing I like moving around and always trying something different. The double bowl or those wavy bowls, I was just finishing up the small ones. I'm going to do two more sizes. And this 50 pounds of clay will be enough to do the mediums and the larges before I move on to something else. It's just hard to imagine doing the same thing over and over, day after day. I had enough trouble getting myself through the 100 mugs. I'm not sure how long the power's going to be out. I'm going to take a look outside and see what kind of damage there is. Three roads that lead to the top of my mountain. Two of them are closed, so I think we will be out of power with a while. You know, how they manage these potteries without electric, I will never know. But not having electric, a lot of the distractions have gone. So the book review is thanks to Mom's wood burner not working and having to get this generator started. The electric start would not work. So I nearly killed myself pulling the hand crank with a friend's help. So that's what we have to thank. All the energy I have left now is for a book review. Everything is glazed over and dripping. I like being able to try different glazes all the time. They used the same thing pretty much over and over again. And you know, there was an interesting story there too. Oh, pulling that crank was enough for me in the day. I was going to sieve and remix some of my small test batches, but I think I may spend the rest of the day in bed. I'm going to say the author, Lee Cartledge, really did a nice job of putting a real human, not just facts and numbers, but a human element in it, a connection to the potters and the people and their workload. I'm speaking of glazes. One of them was of somebody being thrown in a glaze bucket or something like that. Oh, and the slip bat or pool where they dried the slip to make the clay from. Somebody being tricked, a kid, young person, into walking across it. I guess it looked like it was solid on the top. It would dry from the outside in and then got so far. Can you imagine falling in a heavy, thick slip bucket somewhere between slip and clay? Okay, before I take the rest of the day in bed, we'll get something to eat. So I will be cooking and heating with this, okay, old potbelly stove. We better get another log in there. And this is a real adventure, trying to cook on a potbelly stove. Oh, that is it for me for today. I shoveled an awful lot of snow, and to say that I have no rapport with the gasoline engine is a bit of an understatement. They had they had a machinist, somebody who ran. The potter didn't have to worry about getting the what were they called, steam engines started. Oh wow, those things ran on coal, didn't they? It might have been easier than my gasoline engine. And this really was, in a sense, a factory setup that everybody had their own individual job. I'm going to say that the uniqueness of this book was how it was told through the individuals, through and how each dealt with things, you know, their jobs like mining clay or coal. You know, how they moved through the factory like setup, or you know, were pulled into it as somebody who just handed the clay to whoever was throwing to. And they did have plaster mold too. One modern setup where you just threw a ball of clay in and put the lever down and out came a pot. But they didn't take well, I don't think, to that first bit of industrialization kind of thing. That they didn't keep the molds up to date, and they got old and pitted. So, and I'm not so sure that a handcraft um, pottery was meant or should or would naturally develop into industry, because that was a question in the book too, that if this would have happened and that they could have, but I don't think there's a natural progression between the handcraft potter, no matter how much it was almost set up like a factory, and each had their own job and did one small part of the process. Not natural progression between the two, but yeah, tell the story told through the people. I was surprised and didn't know about the weaver, which I know a weaver. Okay, I just got her generator started. That the the pots, the jugs woven around to prevent breakage, for moving, and I guess even after they were moved, and it was left on. So, but there's also happy interaction between the people. I don't remember that when I worked in a production shop, just making, one item a day. There was somebody next to me, but I do remember feeling, isolated there in my own little cubicle in a sense. Um, let's see what else. Yeah, that this was much more than this was more a museum pamphlet with pictures. That this was I'll have to do this one sometime. The country pottery, traditional earthenware of Britain. A lot of similarity, what it covered, but the story told in a much different way. What else is here? Here's one I'll have to do sometime. That when I was doing the French pottery jugs, um, I went through this. This was, I'm gonna have to say, a bizarre. I'm not sure who this was written for. It wasn't. I'm gonna say it was fracturalized or fracturized. It was like broken glass. It was all pieces, and how do you put it together? It wasn't written for collectors in a sense. It wasn't written for historians. It wasn't written for potters, but it had elements of what they would all be interested in. Even the illustrations, were not of a pot, but of a little corner of a pot or the broken hole in a pot. Really was a lot of the story of Richard Batson. It followed him from being pulled from school through the height of industry, through its demise. It also, and him becoming a teacher that he taught, okay, the author, Lee Cartledge, his mother. So there was a connection there too. There really was a lot to think about, because this, the demise of Bateson's craft as a trade, okay, paralleled Bernard Leach and the idea of the studio potter, that he taught, okay, the final twist, some of the first studio potters. And the novel, okay, thought here is that he also, put a questioning thought on the wobble that was in Leach's pots, and even had me thinking there for a bit. Well, why does that have to be there? But in the end, when he developed an injury, and at some point in making a pot where you go like the hand would go like that, and the neck of, I think it was a jug or something, would have a wobble. Something that could have been cleaned out or straightened up. He left it in there. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna have to say, yeah. So big fancy packages here. It's a very small package, but very big book. Very big book in a very small package. Okay, and I will say, stop back. And see if I'm as tough as these people from the past if I go out there, put 9 pounds of clay on a kick wheel. Okay, or if I spend the rest of the day in bed. And there are the dogwood buds just waiting for the glaze to melt off and for them to burst out. Thanks, Freddie. Thanks for sending this my way. I'll give you a call.